Hello guys, before I dive into the strangeness and craziness of this album, just a few quick words about the channel and the future of the channel. Well, as you can see, we are kind of closing in on the Beach Boys album reviews. Obviously there's still gonna be some compilation, archival releases and so on. So anyway, I have a few more albums to go to review, and after that I'm gonna continue with all the sort of leftover live stuff maybe, and some archival stuff, and also all the solo albums. Not maybe everything at once, but slowly. The next thing that I'm gonna do is I'm going to start with talking about their solo stuff, because I actually love most of it. I'm a huge fan of Brian Wilson, at least, and obviously everybody loves Dennis's solo album, and I also do like a few other solo projects by the members. So those are sort of things that are coming next after we wrap up the Beach Boys saga. But there's always gonna be new Beach Boys releases coming out, and I still have a lot of Beach Boys items to collect, and I'm sure that when I get them into my collection I will talk about them with you and share the stories and so on, and hopefully there might even be a chance for me to catch up with the Mike Love's Beach Boys group in the next year or two. I don't know. They are finally coming back to Europe this summer, so who knows. Well, anyway, let's dive into this one. Keepin the Summer Alive from 1980. Well, this is a really strange album because it exists completely in its own bubble. It doesn't sound anything like an 80s album. In my eyes, it's very timeless in that sense. It doesn't really sound like a 70s album, doesn't really sound like an 80s album. It kind of sounds very modern, and a lot to that. And the reason for that is all the thanks really goes for Bruce, because Bruce really produced this album, in my opinion, in a very good way. He didn't go for the sort of cheesy 80s style, and he also stayed away from the sort of disco thing with this one, and also the sort of soft 70s soft rock, yacht rock type of a sound that they had going on the MIU album. So Bruce had been with the group now, back with the group for like a year now at this point, and it's really crazy to me that they were able to pull off and put out an album this good in the year of 1980, because if you study about the history and the stuff that was going on with the group around this time period, it's crazy stuff. It's the darkest and the most saddest period, really, like in their personal lives. They are just a mess. It is really crazy, and I talk more about that, that sort of period and that stuff in the earlier videos, in the live video that I did of their live shows from this time period, and also probably on their the LA album review too. So anyway, Dennis is out of the group, Brian is just a mess, and even Carl is having big problems, and when it comes to their live performances, they are pulling a really big crowds, but they are just messy. They are not very tight, not very good live at this point. So anyway, there's just so much going on, and they are all fighting with each other. They are not getting along at all. So anyway, then this album comes out, and yeah, let's just dive into the songs. Well, a few words about the album cover. I love it. It's a very controversial one. A lot of people don't like it at all, but as you can see, I even have the t-shirt. I don't know if you can see it, but I always loved it. First of all, it's a really cool illustration, and I love this period. They all look cool. It's sort of the same look that they have going in the Networth show, so the Europe 1980 tour that they had. Really cool stuff. Brian is back, Dennis looks cool, and Carl is just classy, Mike is sort of cool, and Alice sort of cool, and Bruce is just kind of there being Bruce, and you have the penguin over there, and the polar bears, and some mountains, some really stormy clouds, and snow, and this sort of bubble with a sort of machine pumping heat to it, and some sand and palm trees, and this beach babe over here, and you just got everything in it. It's super corny, but it's somehow really cool, and I love it that they have the group in the album cover, because they, for the longest of time, they didn't do that. You don't have their faces in any way in the album covers, like since 15 Big Ones, and before that, the previous one where they are at the cover is Sunflowers. So like in 10 years, only 2 albums where you can see them in the front. So I love it, and the back cover is super cool too. You got more penguins, what is named Alvin, and so yeah. Anyway, the album opens up with the title track, Keepin the Summer Alive, which is a super cool track. It's produced interestingly, because it's a rocker, but it's not really produced as a rocker. It's got really cool percussion though, really cool cowbell, and I do love the vocals, and the whole style of this album is kind of similar to 15 Big Ones, because it's very dry. There's not much reverb going on, or effects to that matter, excluding maybe like Santa Ana Winds, where there's this sort of weird Leslie effect on the vocals, but otherwise there's really not much effects. It's very dry, sort of mic'd up closely, which in my ears sort of creates that timeless feeling to it, because it's not drowned into this sort of reverb, sort of echo chamber thing. It's just very clear, clean, and so on, and also when there's guitars, it's kind of very clean, so there's not much distortion and so on, which in the same time, it's a pro and it's a con. And with a song like Keepin the Summer Alive, I think it really would benefit with a bit more edgier production, as you can hear on the live versions that they did of the same track during the same time period. For example, the Nebworth show. You can check out that sort of more harder rocking version, which is amazing. But I do really love the studio version too, because it's different. And I don't know what they were thinking when they did not release that as a single. It should have been the lead single of the album, because it's a great tune, and it's not very deep. Carl wrote it with Randy Bachman, I think. Let me check. Yeah, Bachman. Yeah, well, Bachman, but I think it should be pronounced Bachman. Anyway. So, cool lyrics, very simple tune, kind of, guitar composed, simple rocker, but I always loved it. And I love the fact that there's that sort of super corny bass vocal part, which kind of is the riff of the song. You kind of should play that with a guitar with a little bit of distortion, because it's kind of like a stadium rocker, the tune in itself. But the Beach Boys are too cool for that. They don't fall for that. They actually just do it vocally, which is just why I love them. Anyway, the second track is then Oh Darling, and it is not the Beatles version, even though it has the same title. It is an original, Brian Wilson, Mike Love original. There's also a really cool demo, by the way, floating around with Brian's lead vocals. But anyway, this is sung by Carl, and it kind of follows at the tag a little bit, God Only Knows, with Bruce doing that similar part. But otherwise, I feel it's actually a very overlooked, beautiful melody, really, really well produced, and always loved it. Very touching, and Carl's vocals are pretty much perfect. And it's a love song, kind of a simple tune, but a really, really nice melody, and a really strong opening for the album. And the third track is once again a rocker. It is Some of Your Love. Is it? Yeah, yes, it is. And it's once again Brian Wilson and Mike Love co-write. And once again, a tune that I really, really love. It is so freaking catchy, and I love that dry drum sound, which starts off the track, and then also that saxophone that is kind of mic'd up right into the saxophone, so it's a very dry sound and very sort of like an edgy sound. I really love that. Makes it kind of timeless. So anyway, it originates from an earlier tune, Mike Come Back to LA, which they were actually working on during the MIU sessions. And basically it has the same hook and sort of same melody. It's a very simple, like a 2.5 minute song, I think. Really hard rocking, one of my favorite upbeat Beach Boys tracks. Very much underrated, overlooked tune. It is so freaking catchy, and I love Brian's part, especially because Brian's singing on this album kind of a lot. Not many lead vocals though, but he's in the background a lot, and he has... well, this is sort of the period where his voice really starts to change, because this is sort of the last album where you kind of hear a Brian voice kind of like I just had. It's kind of coarse and rough, but it's very emotional. It still reminds a lot of the sort of the earlier, younger Brian, and you can hear that on the demos. Like for example with the Oh Darling demo, he sounds pretty much just like his younger self. But after this album, the recording of this one, Brian kind of fell off a cliff and really had some tough times, and really did a lot of damage to his voice. So in my opinion, sort of this is the last time you kind of hear that sort of that original sound that he had in his voice, because when he comes back then 5 years later with the 85 album, that voice it's completely changed. So you know, this is sort of the last time when you hear that voice, and it's really nice to hear him prominently on the background vocals on a lot of these tunes, and his parts on Some of Your Love are I don't know, that's just my favorite parts. They are so cool. The fourth track then is it's crappy because the back cover doesn't actually have the right title, but I think it's Living with the Heartache. Yeah, and that is once again a Carl Wilson tune with written with Randy, and it's kind of a country tune, and I really dig it. I think it's really pretty. It's kind of maybe a little bit too long, but it doesn't really overstay its welcome. But I always liked it. It's a new kind of sound for them, and it produced really well, sung really well, and it's kind of bouncy. It kind of reminds me of Carl Wilson's solo material, but you know, being like, it's sort of like one of the stronger tracks. If it was on Carl's solo album, it would be one of the stronger tracks of them. So I really love it. It's, by the way, a sticky album cover. I don't know who knows what or why. Anyway, the fifth track on side A is then, and the last track is School Day, Ring Ring Goes the Bell, which is written by Chuck Berry, and this is a sort of Al Jardine track. He sings it, and I don't know whose idea it was to do it. Was it Brian's or Al's? I think it was Al's, because I think it was Al's idea. I'm not really sure, but anyway, this is really where the album starts to sort of crumble in my eyes. At least I don't like this version at all. And the song itself is not, it's a traditional Chuck Berry track. It's nothing too special. It's not one of his greatest tracks. And the version over here is not very good. Al Jardine's lead vocal is very strong, but that's pretty much it. It's got this super irritating sort of chanting, nah, 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 whatever thing. Kind of reminds me of the Problem Child thing. That's a super irritating part. How does that go? Anyway, I don't even want to think about that part. Anyway, it's just so irritating, and it ruins the song for me. The live version, though, released on the Net Worth show, is actually pretty good. So I have no idea why they didn't, put on the studio album something more like that, because that actually works. But still, I don't really know why they even had to include that at all, because they had a lot of Dennis Wilson solo tracks that they could have used. Even though Dennis was out of the group around this time period, they really should have used some of his solo stuff. But for me, it's kind of crazy to... I think I mentioned this in the previous video too, because I think LA as a sort of farewell to Dennis, because it's got the last Dennis Wilson original. But Dennis was still alive and kicking for like 4 more years. So it's kind of crazy that they I wasn't living then, so I always sort of see Keepin the Summer Alive as the first album that doesn't include Dennis, and Dennis had kind of already passed. But then each time I watch the live shows, like the Net Worth or the 4th of July or the later shows, and Dennis is there and he's strong and, singing beautifully and stuff like that. So it's like, what? It always messes my sort of my brain, because Dennis is completely lacking and missing from this album. But the dynamics were crazy. Anyway, so who knows? The side B, side 2 then opens up with a very, very strong track, Going On, which is once again a Brian Wilson, Mike Love original. It's super cool, by the way, to have on this album a lot of Brian Mike compositions for basically like the last time. Like, sure, they did write tunes later too together, like for example Isn't It Time, with a couple other writers on their last album, but still this is sort of the last hooray in a sense. Anyway, Going On, I'd say probably most people agree it's the best song on the album. I would maybe say so too. It is a friggin' amazing, phenomenal tune, and it deserves all the praise that it gets. I'm still not sure what I think about the sax solo, like melodically, and the composition of it, and the way it's written is beautiful. But I think I would prefer if it had a pure guitar solo, like sort of a distorted guitar solo in a way that Brian May maybe would do it, because this song is, in my ears at least, heavily Queen influenced. It really has this sort of Queen influence. So I think it would have been cooler if it actually had a guitar solo. And this is once again a tune that should have been, I don't know, maybe even the lead single. Not really sure if it was a single. I don't think it was a single at all. Could be maybe a B-side, but I don't think so. Well, anyway, I'm not sure. But yeah, amazing song, heartfelt, amazing vocal by Carl, and once again Brian is doing sort of a responsive vocal in it, like a background vocal, really prominent part. I love his part, and the lyrics and the sort of the melody and the key change with the solo part, and like the whole thing is just perfect and so heartfelt, so soulful. And the production is really beautiful too. And then well, it is a crazy album because, excluding School Days, I love all the tunes so far. But this is sort of where everything just starts to really fast crumble. Sunshine is once again a Brian Wilson Mike Love tune. And this is a song that I personally really love. I think it's a cool jam, but it's not really a song. It's not very well composed. It's just a loop. It's really hilarious, by the way. I bet you can find it from YouTube. This sort of promotional interview that I think it was released with promotional copies of this album, maybe. Don't quote me on that, but I think so. Anyway, it's from the time period of the release of the album. Anyway, Bruce Johnston talks in that interview about the song Sunshine. And he says that, well, we just had this 50-second loop of this track, and we decided to sort of or the sample, basically, this little snippet, we just decided to loop it to create a song. It didn't turn out too good. I don't think it's a very good song, but we put it on the album anyway. He basically just says that while he's promoting the album. Anyway, pretty crazy. But personally, I really dig it. It's kind of like a white boy reggae thing, whatever, But I really love it. I think it's got really fun lyrics, and I love that guitar lick thing, that sort of guitar effect that goes throughout the album. That it just rocks really hard, and the drums are really cool. And I don't know. It's a fun tune, and I've actually had moments in my life when I have listened to this song on a loop, basically like dozens of times, kind of like Brian used to listen to Be My Baby or something. Well, this is sort of my Be My Baby. I don't know. I just really love the tune. But I recognize that it's not very song, like it pales in comparison to Going On or even Some of Your Love. But still, I personally really love it. The rest of the album, well, anyway, let's. I don't want to spoil you what I think about them. When Girls Get Together, once again, a Brian Wilson Mike Love tune, but this is different because this originates from the Sunflower Sessions, and in my opinion, it might be the worst track that they did on those sessions. Well, the backing track is alright, but the composition isn't too fabulous. It's kind of repetitive, and it's like a 3-minute song, but it feels like a 6-minute song. It's that kind of a thing. The lyrics are maybe the worst lyrics that Mike had ever wrote, at least up until this point. Really, really bad, horrific stuff. And, the melody is not, it's kind of tiresome. It's like, when girls get to, it's kind of, to me, it sounds like somebody that's dying is like trying to sing the words to the song, and the song is like supposed to be fun or whatever. Like, it's really just not doing anything for me. I know it has a lot of fans. This album overall is kind of weird because it really splits people's opinions, because in my opinion the last songs on the album are just some of the worst songs that the Beach Boys ever put on any album. But then again, some people say that they are the best songs of this album, and just great stuff. So I don't know, but everybody's got their opinions, and but I don't know. I don't like When Girls Get Together at all, and I have no freaking clue why they decided to pull that one out. Out of all the 40 finished tracks that they had from these Sunflower sessions, like if they really had to go that far, why did they choose this one? I have no freaking clue. But anyway. Then that's followed with actually a pretty good tune, Santa Ana Wins, which is an Al Jardine composition. And Santa Ana Wins, by the way, has been on the news lately, sadly, here in Finland too, because of the Los Angeles fires. So, yeah, kind of I don't know, not a sort of context that I ever thought that I'd sort of get with this song. But there you go. Sadly. Anyway, the only thing that I don't like about this recording is the spoken section at the very beginning. It just kind of destroys the track. But anyway, the track itself is really beautiful, and I don't even mind the weird sort of Leslie effect, which is in the vocals, especially on Mike's vocals. And a lot of people don't like Mike's vocals on this one at all, but personally, it's true, they are very nasal, probably the nasalest that they've ever been. But it's kind of done as an effect, it's done for purpose, which I really dig. It creates this sort of, I don't know, this sort of weird feeling, because his voice is kind of really strange on those couple lines that he sings. It's mostly sung by Al really beautifully. But, it's a cool tune. I really like it. So, good job, Al. One of my favorite Al Jardine tunes. But then, anyway, the album ends off with the most abysmal tune, if you ask me, that the Beach Boys ever did, which is Endless Harmony. And, the track has its fans, and I've never heard the backing track as an instrumental only. I don't know if that's around, but I might actually like the instrumental track. But to me, this is, even coming from a guy that doesn't usually really care about the lyrics. Like, if the lyrics are bad, they are bad, okay, but if the song itself is good, the melody is good, and so on, I don't even mind. But with Endless Harmony, the problem for me, a big problem, is that first of all, it's very sugary, even for Bruce, it's just kind of too much. But then the lyrics, it tries to be very operatic and sort of patriotic and just monumental and build this huge emotion and all that, but it does nothing for me. Kind of quite the opposite, because it starts off with Ocean Lovers and so on, and then each line after that is worse than the one that came before. and by the time Carl sings God Bless America, it's like, this is a farce. It's just a freaking farce. I just don't. I've been listening to this album lately many times because I've heard many people praising this song lately. So I've been like, I really need to give it another chance, because I actually really like all the other stuff that Bruce did for Beach Boys. So maybe I'm just missing something, but I'm driving a car or sitting here listening to my earpads or whatever. Every time this song comes on, my opinion it doesn't change it just sort of gets stronger. You know, I don't like this song at all. So, you know, there you go. You know, the performance in itself is all right and so on, but, you know, the composition, the melody, production, the lyrics, really nothing about it stands out for me, except for, like, how bad it is. But, you know, there you go. It's just my opinion. Maybe if you're American, you can kind of feel that patriotic thing. But for me as an outsider, it doesn't do much for me. And I don't think this is a sort of a style that fits the Beach Boys at all. I don't, it feels very hokey to me, if you get what I mean. But overall, you know, the album is kind of solid. Not as a sort of whole, it's not a cohesive piece. But especially side A, it just has so many cool tracks. And many of those cool rockers and a few ballads too, like Going On and Oh Darling, are on my sort of Beach Boys playlist. I listen to them all the time. I very rarely go back and listen to the whole album. Usually if I listen to this album with streaming, I just listen to side 1 without School Day, and I just skip, you know, School Day to Going On, and then I listen to Sunshine. And then maybe I listen to Santa Ana Wins if I feel like it. That's it. Like, I never go back to the other tracks. So it's really sad kind of how it... If they could have swapped those lesser tracks for Dennis Wilson tunes or some other outtakes from LA sessions, or even, I don't know, like even Adult Child or something. But, you know, they didn't do that. They put out this instead. But I don't think it deserves the bad rap that it gets, because just a lot of people like to hate on it for I don't know why. Maybe because they don't like the cover art or something. I don't know. But in my opinion, I think it's a pretty solid album and a good start for their 80s era. What do you think about the album? Let's continue in the comment section down below. Thanks for watching, and hopefully see you soon again on the next one. Take care. Bye bye.